everyone. Welcome to this India Hangout special, the 2015 Delhi election tracker, along with C voter Yashwant Deshmukh and Aarti Jarata joining me today. We've been talking week by week and watching how things have been changing on ground by, of course, conducting some very surgical polls which look at both perception as well as the likely CM candidate and, of course, who's going to vote for them. So those are the questions that we've been asking. Now, things have been changing, as we said. I mean, we know what happened in December 2013. We know how perceptions changed through 2014. And then in the first week, second week and third week of January 2015, this year, things have already begun changing. And of course, we had that surprise Kiran Bedi introduction, or the introduction of the Kiran Bedi element into the game, which of course seems to have changed things a little bit. So let's kick off. Yashwant, the last time we spoke, Kiran Bedi had just announced her intention to take part in the electoral campaign, and of course is now nominated as the Chief Minister candidate. Now, what are people saying? I mean, from just let's look at the data and understand how are the people of Delhi responding to this.
Yeah, of course, yes, we will recap that. But one thing which I would like to replug in the last 6 weeks or so when we started this tracker, those who have joined new, and as I was discussing with Aarti of the record, we from the data did quite a lot of cross section of the data and tried to understand in the last 1 year what is the kind of support base or the composition of the vote that Aam Aadmi Party has been gaining traction in Delhi, and we got the empirical evidence that in the December 2013 election, the core base, I would say, of the pause was of the middle class vote bank. But in the last 1 year, somehow this has thoroughly changed. The pyramid has inverted, and all of a sudden, Aam Aadmi Party has actually lost the middle class vote to the BJP, but it got more than compensated with the low income group and the core group of the Congress vote bank, that is the Dalit and the minorities. So on one hand, it looks like Aam Aadmi Party lost the middle class to the BJP, but it got more than compensated by the losses of the Congress towards the Aam Aadmi Party. So the end result was that the composition of the Aam Aadmi Party vote bank changed from a middle class vote to the low income minority Dalit vote, which was more characteristic of the Congress core vote. And this is where the entire race of Delhi started becoming a bipolar race in terms of socio-economic classification of the support bases between the BJP and the Aam Aadmi Party. With the entry of Kiran Bedi, of course, we were when it was declared, I had mentioned that another factor of the demography which I would be keeping a very keen eye on is the gender gap, because entry of Kiran Bedi and we have seen that the issue of female security was pretty much on within the top 3 issues in Delhi, apart from the issue of development and the inflation. The third one on the chart was female security. So we had decided that we'll keep a keen eye on the gender gap and see how the male and female gap is performing, if there is any gap on the voting behavior, as we had seen on the low income group and the high income group and the middle income group kind of thing. So this is where we are today. I would like to go through the questions once and also try to understand what kind of the gender gap sensitivity is there right now on the ground.
And we'll come to that in a second. Aarti, let's get a sense from you. So, I mean, the numbers, to be frank, while there are some significant sort of moves, particularly in favor of BJP when it comes to the chief ministerial candidate, and there are also other elements which are not really moving. I mean, including if you look at if you were to break down the composition by income group and so on. But we'll come to that in a moment. What's your sense? I mean, as this battle develops on the field, what's your sense of the post Kiran Bedi environment, the post Kiran Bedi landscape today in Delhi? Is that substantially different? Is it your sense that people have been waiting for someone like her to come along, whether as a BJP projected candidate or otherwise?
Well, I would say that the introduction of Kiran Bedi as a chief ministerial candidate has certainly given a sharper edge to the BJP's, just 1 minute, please, sorry. has certainly given a sharper edge to the BJP's campaign. She has brand recall in Delhi, there's no question, and she's been quite a sort of activist, Maksai Sai Award winner, a TV personality, and so people do, identify with her, or rather do identify her as a brand. But in terms of voter, attraction, Kiran Bedi largely appeals to a category of voter that I feel is already with the BJP, the middle class voter that Yashwant was referring to. You see, that middle class voter is quite solidly with the BJP and has been with the BJP since the Lok Sabha polls, since Arvind Kejriwal quit the government in Delhi after 49 days, and since Modi kind of, appeared on the political landscape as the BJP's PM candidate, that middle class vote has shifted. And that is primarily the voter base to which Kiran Bedi appeals. So in terms of value addition to the BJP's election campaign, I'm not sure how much she really brings to the table, in terms of getting additional voters for the BJP. The lower, the lower middle class vote, the minorities, these people, I think, are still solidly with Arvind Kejriwal. They do not have any connect to Kiran Bedi. She has not worked with them. Arvind Kejriwal has. And as far as the minorities are concerned, I think the minorities basically look at the BJP versus the, Aam Aadmi Party, and, will certainly, especially after all the controversies of the last few months on, religious conversion and so on and so forth, I think will certainly go for an anti-BJP position rather than, look at the personalities involved.
Okay, that's interesting, Aarti. So, Yashwant, when we look back at the data, right, so we've also done and looked at the significance of Kiran Bedi independent of a political party, and that itself, if I recall, was interesting because she enjoyed unusually high recall compared to the other candidates, including Harshvardhan and Kejriwal and Sheila Dikshit, who were polled at that point of time. Am I right?
Yeah. There are two things. First of all, I'm really glad that what Aarti's observations are, qualitative observations on the ground, are very much matching with whatsoever for the last 6 weeks we have been getting the empirical data on that. That the lower income group, the Dalit and the minorities, basically consolidating for Aam Aadmi Party and Arvind Kejriwal, and the middle class largely remaining with the BJP. But clear and present danger for the BJP, as I see, Aarti, which we have been looking at the data in the last 3 months, was that there was a section of middle class which over the period of in the last 3 months was kind of becoming edgy with the BJP and shaky with the BJP. For many reasons. Primarily, biggest reason was the leadership crisis within as far as the state leadership is concerned, and as we mentioned that Delhi is not Haryana or Maharashtra or Jharkhand for that matter. Even though Prime Minister Narendra Modi's ratings were always very high, but as far as Arvind Kejriwal was concerned, no state BJP leader barring Dr. Harshvardhan was anywhere near to that rating. And even between Harshvardhan and Kejriwal, the gap was getting bigger by the day simply because of absence of Dr. Harshvardhan into the electoral field. He was kind of pushed away, and then the way he was shunted out of the health ministry, somehow, it was not going down well. And rest of the BJP characters, including be it Jagdish Mukhi, be it Satish Upadhyay, be it anyone, Vijay Goel, was not even 1%, 2% category. So the gap between the two top leaders as far as the ratings was concerned was as huge as it used to be between Narendra Modi and Rahul Gandhi during the parliamentary elections. So we were tracking that middle class was kind of getting edgy, and by the time that Aam Aadmi Party campaign really picked up in November and December, the gap in October polls where the BJP was enjoying about 10% lead over Aam Aadmi Party, in our December poll that gap came down to just 1%. That was the kind of movement or the shift that was started happening even in the lower sections of the middle classes, I would say, which started moving. What I feel, what Kiran Bedi is bringing on table, which again we will see in the data how it's working out, is probably to galvanize the BJP, the core vote. That's the middle class. Just as Aarti said, that the middle classes have been the core vote, and instead of getting new vote on the table, what Kiran Bedi is ensuring is just galvanization of the BJP core vote, not letting them fret away that vote share. This is what is happening at the moment. And
Right.
of course, along with that, what one unique proposition which our data is now telling us is actually of the gender gap, and which is very interesting, which I would like to detail discuss in detail today. What kind of data which we are getting.
And Yashwant, just give me a second. We'll come to that. Aarti, let me come back to you. So I mean, we've been looking at these numbers over time, as in last 4 weeks very closely, and of course looking at previous data. I think what you've raised is an interesting point about Kiran Bedi only capturing or absorbing existing loyalties within the middle class BJP sample, so to speak, and not necessarily going beyond that. So if we were to, the question we were trying to ask, but at the beginning of the discussion is Kejriwal losing, right? And have the developments of the last 3 weeks in some ways, though Kejriwal's sort of ascent was a surprise in itself in the last month, he also seems to be on a sort of downward incline now. And is that something that people were expecting or not expecting, or is it a logical outcome? How do you see it, Aarti?
Well, I feel that this election is still very, very open. Everything really hinges on the next 2 weeks of campaign. The BJP's candidate selection has only just happened. They've only just announced their candidates list. And as we've seen, there's been a lot of protests in the BJP over not just Kiran Bedi, but over candidate selection as well, with, sort of some stalwarts being denied tickets and, all kinds of unknown faces being given tickets. And not just unknown faces, but imports from other parties, both from Aam Aadmi Party as well as Congress being given tickets. That's created a lot of heartburn and resentment. And, I'm not sure that an opinion poll can really map or track, what's happening on the ground as far as the BJP worker, the BJP rank and file is concerned. In fact, it's not possible to track it even today. We'll really only know on voting day whether the BJP worker is out there as enthusiastically, bringing the voter to the polling booth, or whether the BJP worker has decided to stay at home and not participate in these elections. So I feel that the campaign is still the election is still very open. Yeah. A lot hinges on, the campaign of the next 2 weeks. The only thing I can say for sure is that I see in this personality contest, this very sharply focused personality battle between two former comrades, two former anti-corruption, comrades, the Congress has got completely squeezed out. And, as Yashwant knows, in the Lok Sabha elections, the Congress still got a 15% vote share. And it'll be interesting to see how much that dips and where it goes to.
Right, and I think it's a good point. I mean, so let's look at just to sort of round up this part. Let's look at the seat projections that C voter gave and the change, if any, right? So we're just getting the chart up. So if you look at between the last Vidhan Sabha December 2013 elections, so the change for BJP is really from 31 seats to 37 seats, as you can see on the screen there. So that's a +6. And the question, as you can see, is whom will you vote for if elections are held today? And this was held, this is of course the freshest survey that we've got. On the other hand, you can see AAP, which is at 26, and that's also, there's no clear sign whether it's really sort of increasing or decreasing, considering that there could be a margin of error. And the Congress, of course, is also sort of fluctuating. So the only one who seems to have gained somewhat in this is BJP. Yashwant, data, is this sufficient to draw any conclusion? Because we're not really seeing any sharp changes.
After the parliamentary elections were over,
Yeah.
I can tell you in broad terms, BJP in parliamentary election was about 45%. Aam Aadmi Party was approximately 35%. The gap was approximately 10%. What has happened in the last after 6 months in the after the Lok Sabha election, BJP slowly slipped down by 5% to about 40%, and Aam Aadmi Party went up by 5%, around 40%. And by the end of December, it was kind of a statistical tie, too close to call, as we call what Aarti is indicating. Yes, I totally agree with her that it's actually wide race, wide open, as on today I would call. The only thing which I am looking into is that, after this kind of a two like to call, this is where Kiran Bedi comes in. And my question is not if BJP, Kiran Bedi can increase the vote share, but can Kiran Bedi stop the downswing of the BJP vote share? And can Kiran Bedi bring back the BJP vote share back on the BJP kitty?
Okay, Yashwant.
That's the thing which I am looking at.
Right. So Yashwant, now let's look at the four other polls, right? I mean, so we've asked questions about, and this is really a different way of asking the same question. We're saying we asked the voters of Delhi, please tell us which of these leaders can, do the best when it comes to development of Delhi, controlling corruption in Delhi, safety of women in Delhi, and of course then finally who's your preferred candidate to become the next chief minister. And we'll come to the preferred candidate bit at the end. But let's look at these other two things. Aarti, if I were to pose to you that, as a citizen of Delhi, here are the three issues: development of the city, control of corruption, safety of women. What in your mind would be the predominant issue when you actually cast that vote today?
Unfortunately, Govind, in this election, issues have really gone out of the window. Frankly, in my sort of dipstick surveys that I do, I just go around the streets of Delhi, wherever I go, whichever marketplace I go to, I just talk to people on the streets to ask them, what they feel about the elections. The only real issue that people are talking about is price rise. I really don't hear them, unlike the 2013 elections, when I think issues were very much at the forefront because the Aam Aadmi Party gave the hope of introducing a new kind of politics, in India, of bringing democracy back to people, of giving democracy back to the people. This time I find a singular lack of interest in issues. Personalities have come to dominate. And really what people are talking about is Kiran Bedi versus Arvind Kejriwal. Who's more of a maverick, who's more, sort of capable, who's a better administrator, who can run a tighter government, a tougher government. Really, that's what people are talking about.
Aarti and Yashwant Yashwant of course knows these numbers.
I'm
Kiran
glad
Bedi
you
actually
pointed out.
scores high, right? If when it comes to control of corruption and safety of women, between Kiran Bedi and Kejriwal, Kiran Bedi, possibly due to her background, is seen as someone having a much better position or a stronger hold, and you can see that on the chart. Yes, Yashwant.
Yeah, I totally agree with Aarti that it has become a clash of the personalities. And why these three issues, one may ask, is simply because in our weekly tracking poll, since the December 2013 elections, we are figuring out that these three issues are on the top of the mind recall for Delhites as the main issue. The issue of the corruption, issue of the development, and the female safety issue. These three has been dominating almost 90% of the electorate between these three issues, the inflation and like that. So this is why we put up only these three issues to figure out what is the kind of impact of the personality based politics and vis-a-vis the issue affinity, as Aarti is saying that there are no issues but there are very two strong personalities. So we tried to do a cross tab, Aarti, to figure out those who say which leader is better to tackle which particular issue. Now three different questions, and we can see from the data that on the issue of corruption, somewhere where Arvind Kejriwal has scored better on the rest of, rather than the remaining two issues, on the issue of the corruption. And the second issue of the development, they kind of very closely, become a tie in a way that, okay, both the leaders are taken well. But it's the issue of the female safety. This is where the really big gap of Kiran Bedi comes into the play, and this is where you can see, even when you do a cross tab of male and female respondents, you see the female respondents affinity towards Kiran Bedi on this particular issue. The gap becomes substantially huge and big. So now we know that these are the three issues which these two leaders are going to talk about. Anti-corruption platform is a strong forte of Arvind Kejriwal. This is where he is going to keep on harping, keep on campaigning, because he knows that is the point where he can score. And
what's
female
your,
safety issue is somewhere where you can expect Kiran Bedi to hit on, because this is where her personality fits in, her trust factor fits in, and the female voters of Delhi, they are totally getting biased in favor of Kiran Bedi as far as this particular issue is concerned.
Right. So I think the question is now, if depending on which issue is top of the mind when they actually cast their vote, is it, to Aarti's point on price rise, or is it safety of women? But the interesting thing also, and before we move on, Yashwant, is even in corruption, Kejriwal is only closely behind Kiran Bedi. I mean, going by your own data, Kiran Bedi is at 47% for male, 57% for female, where of course she's, it's higher. But I'm sure the average sort of leaves her only marginally ahead. So it doesn't appear that even Arvind Kejriwal has a complete autonomy on the issue of corruption as he did perhaps earlier.
True that, but there is a reason to it. I mean, when you look into, first of all, even in the issue of the corruption, you see that females are rating Kiran Bedi much better than Kejriwal, but males are rating much better for Arvind Kejriwal than Kiran Bedi. So there is a kind of a split as far as the male and the female respondents are concerned. Somewhere that gender gap is coming into play. And Aarti, you must be remembering the 15 years back, it was the female voters who were responsible for kicking out BJP from Delhi on the onion issue. Because our exit poll, we had figured out that we pulled out that data and we put into account that it was one of the biggest gender gaps as far as the voting intention was concerned in 1998, which swept Sheila Dikshit in and kicked BJP out. Okay. And this is completely the reversal of that kind of gender gap which we are looking in this election in our data, that because of Kiran Bedi, that gender gap is now working in favor of the BJP rather working against the BJP.
Okay, so that's an interesting point. So, Aarti, have you thought about that? I mean, it's an obvious one, but the additional maybe gender advantage that Kiran Bedi enjoys, maybe along the lines of what happened when Congress came into power?
I don't know, I that's not my sense, frankly, but, mine is a very sort of amateurish kind of, survey. As I said, I just go around like a journalist and talk to people. And it's not my sense that she enjoys any kind of gender advantage. I mean, I don't know, maybe if she'd been given time in Delhi, this introduction at the last minute, I don't think women necessarily respond to Kiran Bedi better because she's a woman. I think the issue of women's safety is very critical to women in Delhi. But I think, women in Delhi really are quite cynical about what political parties will do for their safety. So I don't think they have any great expectations, whether it's a woman chief minister. After all, for 15 years, Delhi had a woman chief reporter. And when the most brutal and most awful gang rape happened in Delhi, she was nowhere to be seen. So and as a woman myself, I'm quite cynical really about, political parties. Okay. So I don't think that, Kiran Bedi enjoys any great advantage because she's a woman.
Okay, great. So let's come to the last question. So which of the following is your preferred candidate, of course, to become the next Chief Minister of Delhi? And you're seeing here when it comes to males, if you look at the chart, 46% are preferring Kiran Bedi, but Kejriwal is not far behind. And Ajay Makin, the new entrant in the poll pack, is at 8%, and Congress is thus behind. Female Kiran Bedi sort of pulls ahead with 56%, and Arvind Kejriwal 33%. So 44% of males want Kejriwal, and 46% of males want Kiran Bedi. 33% of females want Arvind Kejriwal. 56% of females want Kiran Bedi. Yashwant, what is this adding up to? And this, of course, is the latest survey. We may remind you.
The way I look at it, this entire number, Govind, is that nowhere in the ratings, Kiran Bedi is crossing the BJP core vote 45-46% as the BJP core vote has been in the city. But before Kiran Bedi, when you pull out the data from the last month's survey, the next probable name was Dr. Harshvardhan, which was about 20%. So the BJP vote share in the last month's survey was about 42%, but Dr. Harshvardhan was at 20%, and the third name was around 2%. So there was a quite deficit, I would say, between the number of people who were voting for the BJP and the leadership rating of the available BJP candidate at that point of time. But as far as Arvind Kejriwal was concerned, Arvind Kejriwal's vote and the ratings both were going hand in hand, because whomsoever was voting for Aam Aadmi Party said, I wanted Arvind Kejriwal to become the chief minister. Same was not in the case of the BJP. What I think that now the BJP supporters who say that we will vote for the BJP, they also quickly add that we want, between Kejriwal and Kiran Bedi, we want Kiran Bedi to be chief minister. So the BJP support base and the leadership rating is now in the sync, which was out of sync till now. While on the other hand, Arvind Kejriwal and Aam Aadmi Party support base remain in sync. So now we have a bipolar thing. Two party and the two leadership, they are in sync with each other, and the only suffer as Aarti pointed out, the Congress is somewhere being squeezed out in this bipolar contest.
That's a sort of interesting place we are in, and we are missing Ayaz Memon today to give what seems to be a very appropriate cricketing analogy. And of course, the match is wide open. We don't know which way either the batting or the bowling will swing. But Ayaz is going to be back next week, hopefully with a flourish on that front. Aarti, last word.
Yeah, as I said, I think it's a really open contest, and I am not willing to, I'm really hedging my bets on this election. I think we have to see how the campaign proceeds, and I have a theory. I have a theory of the last mistake. I think the winner of this election is going to be the one who doesn't make the last mistake. Rather, the loser will be the person who makes the last mistake. So let's see, as this is a very high pressure election, let me tell you. I mean, Arvind Kejriwal, of course, has a lot at stake because his entire political future depends on this. But let me tell you, Amit Shah has staked his personal prestige on this election because he's the one who's taken the decision to bring Kiran Bedi in at the last minute. So it's become a very high stakes election.
Right.
And let's see who stands up best under this pressure, whether Kejriwal stands up best or Kiran Bedi stands up best.
Right, and what happens in Delhi is something that all of India must watch very closely. Even if it's what happens in Delhi is not so relevant for all of India, it surely is important and critical as we all watch. Thank you so much, folks, for joining us. We're going to be back on Tuesday, same time, and continue our discussion. We'll pick with a new set of numbers as we count down to the 2015 Delhi elections. Thanks for watching.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am, for joining us. Thank you for your time.
Bye, Yashwant.
Bye.